Welcome back to the Max Reality. If you've seen my face before, then you know the drill, but if you're new here, I love talking all things reality TV, and today we are continuing our journey through Shark Tank Season 16 with Episode 19. Our sharks for the episode are Barbara, Kevin, Lori, Mark, and Robert. Our first pitch of the night is ESAI. Julia walked into the tank looking for $250,000 for 5% of her AI tool that lets you not have to think about writing a college essay or what college you want to go to. The machine will just do it for you. Here it is. I'm honestly not going to spend a lot of time explaining what it does. If you want to know, you should research for yourself. But overall, it's an AI tool that's supposed to help with the college admission process, like writing essays for you, finding schools for you. That way you do not have to use your brain whatsoever. The computer will just do everything for you, because who would want to learn critical thinking skills and all of the stuff you should be learning in school when this will just do it for you? So if you've seen any of my Shark Tank videos before, especially ones that had to do with AI companies, you probably were not surprised by the way I just introed that. If you're new here, hello. I hate all of these AI companies so much, and this one specifically made me more angry than usual. I don't know if it's just because we're at the end of the season almost and I'm just so freaking tired of it, or if it's because of what it deals with. Either way, this is your fair warning that this is not an unbiased, just talking about what happened in this episode. This is a very biased one, because I just truly cannot take it anymore. I debated just skipping over this one, but I can't do that because of the kind of person I am. I could not just skip over this. I'm gonna talk about it, but I'm not happy about it. So if you don't want to hear me ragging on AI for the next however long, we have timestamps in the description. If you're here for it, let's roll. As usual, we will start with the numbers. Like with most apps, they do a freemium model, so they have free features that you can use no matter what. But if you want some of the more in-depth features or extra features, you do have to pay a premium of $49.99 a month. They just started monetizing the app last month, and so far they have $70,000 in annual reoccurring revenue. Now, that's not a term we use in Shark Tank a whole lot, so if you don't really understand, that is perfectly okay. What it means is it's a type of projection that's used by companies that have a subscription model, like hers does, that they project out the annual revenue based on the amount of subscriptions they have. Since they only started monetizing last month and we only have that kind of projection number, a number I would have been more interested in hearing is how many total downloads they have, or if they have information about how long they've been able to retain users. I think that would have been more interesting for me personally. I also don't know how long they've had the app open. They just told us they started monetizing last month, but they didn't tell us how long it's been available for people to download. Again, like I always put in the disclaimer at the beginning, it could have been said and it might have been edited out, but Shark Tank editors, if you did edit it out, I would have liked to hear that. That would have been more interesting to me than this projection number, because even though the projection is based off legitimate things, it's still a projection at the end of the day. I would like some more concrete retention about users and that sort of thing. That's just my opinion. And of course, like all of these bogus freaking tech companies, it's too early in this video to swear. I'm being very conscious about it. They, of course, have had to raise money. So far, they've raised $1 million at a $5 million valuation. And they just started monetizing last month. I hate this stuff. I hate it so much. Anyway, first we have Kevin, who asks a question that I think a lot of people at home are thinking.
Julie, I must ask right out of the gate, why can't I just use any AI app to do this? What do I need you for? And
as you can probably guess, if you've heard any of these businesses pitch themselves before, she gives the standard answer of they're built off of, the base AI technology that everybody has access to. But what makes them different is their experience and their training that they've put on top of it. And the fact that they've made a gamified experience. She uses all of those techie new age terms that people love throwing out there for their businesses. Literally she hits the mark on all of them. Then we have a moment that made me almost absolutely lose my mind, and every time I rethought about it, it just made me so much more angry. And pretty much the sharks are asking her how she aggregates all the data and maintains it about the different colleges out there and all the other data she needs for this app to work.
It's all publicly available data. Kids just don't know how to research.
The statement, yes, I understand. But the way she says it and kind of laughs, I get that it might just be like a nervous laugh thing, but it made me so livid because it's not funny. It's not a funny thing. And building stuff because kids can't research instead of teaching kids to research and doing something with, I'm going to get on a tangent before we can even get done with this, but that was the moment where I was like, I just don't want to give space to this pitch because that made me so mad. So mad. Kids don't know how to research. Isn't that so funny? Our society is going to slowly get dumber and dumber and dumber. How fun. And I'm going to help with my AI personalized storytelling garbage thing. Okay, I gotta calm down. I'm gonna pull myself together. We're gonna get through this pitch, y'all. We're gonna do it. And I'm gonna stop going on as many tangents until we get more to the end. I'm gonna try my best. I'm gonna try. I can't promise, actually. I'm just gonna try. Anywho, Lori is our first shark to go out, citing the fact that she doesn't really like the $1 million raise that Julia's done, and she immediately kind of snipes back at her, being like, well, I still own 80%. I only got rid of 20% doing that. So, which, like, good for her. Great for her. Whatever. That's not really Lori's point about the $1 million raise. The real point, though, is that she's out. Then we have Barbara, who has a similar gripe I did earlier, talking about that I would love to see more, like, user retention and that sort of stuff. Barbara feels like she hasn't proven the model that people will stay on the platform, and overall just feels like she's too early, so she's out. Then, unsurprisingly, our AI lover, Mark Cuban, of course, loves it and decides to offer her $250,000 for 10%. We then have Robert pop in really quickly to say that overall he's really skeptical of the product, mostly because of a number we didn't talk about earlier, because again, I'm just trying to speed roll through this. But that is her conversion rate, which is only 3%, which isn't nothing, but it's not fantastic, and he doesn't feel like it's necessarily proving anything. And with that, he's out. And last, and also unsurprisingly, we have Kevin interested, more than likely because of the data that's being collected. He loves companies like this that are collecting data, and he decides to match Mark's offer of $250,000 for 10%. But Julia says she has to stay firm on her valuation because not only does she have to protect her investors from previously when she raised $1 million, they are currently raising money aside from the Shark Tank deal. It's fine. So she asks Mark if he would consider doing 5% along with 2% advisory shares. Mark comes back trying to get 3. She goes back at him again with 2.5. And this is proof Mark has gotten so soft in his final season. And he ends up making the deal with her for $250,000 for 5% plus 2.5 advisory shares. We'll start off slowly and coolly, just talking about the deal itself overall. I immediately knew when she came in and it was an AI company that Mark was probably gonna be the one investing in it, unless her numbers were just like absolutely bananas completely, like if she lost a bunch of money or something like that. Something dramatic I felt like was gonna have to happen for Mark not to try to invest in this one, because he loves all the AI companies. I love Mark, but that's my biggest gripe with him. I hate that he's made I don't know this actually. This is slight speculation. Because Mark is a Google Gemini AI partner, my speculation is it is 100% his fault that we're getting all of the Gemini ads in these episodes. Something I have not talked about at all because I haven't wanted to is the fact that every Shark Tank update almost this season has actually just been a secret ad for Google Gemini AI stuff. It's been so annoying. Luckily, I don't talk about the updates in these videos anyway. That's why I just really haven't brought it up. But literally, there's only been a handful that weren't sponsored by Gemini AI and weren't companies just being like, thank God I never have to write an Instagram caption again because I'm not clever. So it's so frustrating. I thought I was going to start off cool and then immediately went on a tangent. Sorry. So clearly I don't like this one. But why do I not like this one more than I not like other... That was such a weird way to say it. I'm keeping it. More than the other AI businesses that have come in, and that's because this is about children's education. That's why it has made me so incredibly frustrated and angry. And I want to start off with, I 100% am not saying it is this young woman's fault that the kids can't read. It's not her company's fault. It's obviously a clearly very new company, but I just think it's ridiculous to focus on making apps and things like that that coddle to this idea we're slowly developing in society that people can't research for themselves. People don't have critical thinking anymore. And instead of coddling to that and making these dumb AI apps that ruin the environment so you don't have to think for 4 seconds, we need to do things like, oh, I don't know, maybe invest in the Department of Education. Crazy thought, I know. And I'll admit it. It's been a little over 10 years since I was in the process of applying for colleges, and I know things have changed in the 10 years. I know there are things that are harder about it, more competitive about it, but what she's doing in this app are things the kids should be learning in school. Things I distinctly remember doing. We had days in our English classes where we worked on how to write an essay. I think we even specifically had times where we were working on these college essays, having to come up with moments in your life where you had struggles and things like that. That's what those classes are for. That's why the kids are in school, and that's why we should maybe, again, I don't know, invest in that. Pay teachers more, instead of just being like, it's fine, we don't need critical thinking anymore. Who cares? Who needs critical thinking? Just absolutely, just bonkers to me. And there will be people who say, well, people said the same things about computers in general years ago, that like nobody was going to use their brains, blah, 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 blah. I hear that. And whatever. Maybe in a bajillion years, I'll have a different opinion. But with what we know about AI right now, especially with what it's doing to the environment and what we can clearly see with society, with people actively losing the ability to read and think and comprehend and research things for themselves, we are actively seeing that in society. So stuff like this is just very frustrating to me right now. And I think I'll just end it there because I could keep ranting about this forever, but we have 3 whole other pitches to do, and I honestly want to be done with this one. So let's close it. Chapter over, throw it away, never thinking about this again. Our second pitch of the night is Mirai Clinical. Coco walked into the tank looking for $500,000 for 5% of her persimmon soap to help with the old people or nonenal body odor. Here it is. It's a line of soap and different skincare products that uses the persimmon fruit to help target nonenal body odor, which she informs us is that kind of musty smell that sometimes people get when they start to get older. First things first, there may be some of you Shark Tank fans who think Coco looks familiar, and you would be right. We saw Coco about 5 years ago when she was pitching her face yoga, and that definitely ends up kind of tainting the rest of this pitch. If you never saw it, it was a type of yoga where you're stretching your face in different ways to help you maintain young, like elastic skin. But it was definitely seen as like one of those kooky sort of pitches. And because of that, this pitch definitely kind of follows through. It also doesn't help that her valuation is very high, but I do want to give that context ahead of time. For the Hero circular soap bar that you saw previously when I was describing the product, it cost her $1.85 to make, and while she was in the tank, it retailed for $17.97. That is not the case before, because as usual, I was scoping out the websites, and now that bar of soap is $19.97, which just feels astronomical to me. Their lifetime sales are $8.7 million. So nothing really to laugh about there. Unfortunately, we don't get how long the business has been open, so we don't know what period that was over. But she does tell us in 2023, they did $2.2 million. So obviously they're still doing well. And then she informs us 2024 should have been a $4 million year. But then, as she calls it, the soap heist happened, which I'm kind of laughing, but it's not funny. It's actually really sad if you're a business owner. So what happened was a truck on the way from their factory to their fulfillment center literally vanished. That's what she says. Literally just disappeared with all of that inventory. It's under FBI investigation right now. And I think she said that they were closer to doing just about the same as last year, about the $2 million mark. But crazy. She said it was half their inventory. It just what? It just vanished? Wild. Absolutely wild. But we do have a profitable company. Do you see what I'm saying about there's wacky stuff in this? And I feel like it's just so because of her overshadowing from her last time on here. Anyway, she is profitable. In 2023, off the $2.2 million, they did $250,000 net. So again, nothing to laugh at, even though, like, it is a little, like, she's a little kooky because she's just, like, fun and funny. And because of last time, and because she calls it, like, a soap heist, it's just, ugh, I feel so bad for her. They're playing, like, the kooky music underneath when, like, there's not a lot to, like, she clearly has a business going here. Anyway, so she brings in a fragrance sample of what nonino, or as she keeps calling it, like, old man smell is, and this gives us a great moment from Lori.
Wait, I'll just go over here.
Right over there, right?
I diluted for...
And as I was saying a minute ago, even though she comes off a little kooky, this woman knows her numbers. She knows her marketing numbers, revenue, anything that these sharks throw at her number-wise, she has it down, unlike other people. Foreshadowing.
You know what's interesting about you? You come across like a nut bar, except you actually know what you're talking about.
As you can imagine, the real initial question from all the sharks is, why can't people just use normal soap? And she tells us that the persimmon has different special properties, like the tannins in it and all of that, that specifically target that nonino body odor. They even have a partnership with a persimmon lab in Japan that helps them with testing the effectiveness so they can make sure their soap is really targeting that smell better than anything else can. Unfortunately, that is not enough to stop what I always call the avalanche of sharks going out. We start with Mark, who thinks there could be some fun marketing stuff there, and obviously she's selling them, but ultimately it's just not a business for him, so he's out. Then there's Robert, who feels like while she does know her numbers, none of the numbers she said really justified the $10 million valuation she came in with, which, fair enough, I guess. And because of that, he's out. We then have both Lori and Barbara giving kind of similar reasons. Lori just says that she doesn't necessarily feel like everybody over 40, because by the way, that is the age she said that nonino starts at. I'm not saying you're old if you're 40. I'm about to be 30. So that's just what she said. Lori doesn't feel like necessarily everybody over 40 has that like old man musty smell. And because of that, this isn't really a product she'd want to invest in. So she's out. Then we have Barbara, who just quote for quote pretty much says, well, I'm married to an old man and he doesn't smell, so I'm out. Which, hilarious. Good for you, queen. Love it. And last, there is Kevin, who has similar points to Robert, starting out with the fact that he feels like her coming in asking for $500,000 was just way too much, and while she does have sales with the valuation she came in with, he's just not interested, and he is also out, meaning, unfortunately, she leaves the tank without a deal. Final thoughts, we'll start out with the pitch. Unfortunately, I just feel like if you have come into the Shark Tank with kind of a kookier pitch that didn't work out, it is going to be very hard to overcome that. And I honestly feel like she did most of what she could to overcome it. I think really where it fell through was the valuation and the ask for money. I want to say in my heart that if those numbers had been better, maybe they would have been more receptive to her, but it is kind of a challenge to come back in front of the sharks if they already kind of think you're a little wacky. But I just want to give her so much credit. She did know her numbers. She has a profit. Nothing to laugh about there. She has kind of a silly personality, sort of. She just kind of seems like a really happy, bubbly person. And unfortunately, that was to her detriment in the tank, so it happens. I will say, though, I do agree with the sharks about the numbers being a little off, especially because when you're asking for that much money with that kind of valuation, it does make it a little harder for the sharks to even counter. But I feel like if this had been a different person, maybe some of the sharks would have been more open to trying to counter with things like they love to do, and they're like, well, if you really want to know, I think that you won't like it, and it'll be, really, really sharky, but I'll tell you if you want. I feel like that might have happened if it had been a different person, but that's all just speculation. But at the end of the day, I do agree the numbers were a little off for what she came in asking for. As far as the product itself goes, $20 for a bar of soap just seems astronomical, especially right now, but who's to say? Maybe if I was older and I could smell that smell and I really wanted to get rid of it, I'd be willing to spend $20 if it works. So if it works, great. She clearly has sales. There clearly are people interested in it, even if I think it's too much. So good for her. I hope she continues with her persimmon soap. And I don't know. That's all I have for this one. Our third pitch of the night is Cricket's Candy Creations. Cricket walked into the tank looking for $275,000 for 10% of her edible craft business. Here it is, overall pretty self-explanatory. She makes edible crafts for kids to enjoy then eat. She has a brick and mortar location where they do parties where the kids can make crafts. Along with that, she sells take-home kits, so the fun doesn't have to stop in the store. We have another pitch where I would like to preface some stuff, and that is, this woman really, really struggled with her numbers. A lot of the pitch was like trying to detangle them, and I've done my best for y'all to have it as clear as possible with, telling the story also. But if I ever sound a little unsure, I say I am, it is because truly I kept having to back up and try to sort out what was being said about sales, about everything. It was so confusing. With that, let's continue. For the cost breakdown, we don't get how much it costs to make a party, really. We do get some more numbers about the parties a little bit later, but for this, we get the kits that she sells, and she said it used to cost her $17 to make, but their most recent run was only $13, and they retail for $39.99. Now, like with all the products, I was checking out the website, and that doesn't seem to be the case anymore. Now the kits have a range from $44.99 all the way up to $54.99. That is, unless you're getting the kits with multiple kits in it. Of course, that's going to be more, but for the single kits, there is a range of them now. She's only been doing the kits for a year and a half, and during that time, she sold $100,000 worth. She also tells us that parties in the store typically earn around $500,000 a year, and their total sales to date are $1.7 million. Again, though, I don't know how long the store has been open. She just told us that the kits were newer, so I don't know what the span of time that 1.7 million is. That's all I have for you there. One of the first things the sharks are wondering is if there's anything proprietary about this business, and as you can probably imagine, the answer is not really. It's more about making a brand that people know and immediately associate with candy crafting, being the #1 candy crafting brand. And of course, she's doing that through her stores and also now by selling these kits, not only in her store, but online. Along with that, they are wanting to start doing franchises. They've even started working with an agency that will help them build out this franchise model. And at this point, the sharks feel really confused with what exactly she's wanting her business model to be. And to try to understand better, they start digging into the numbers. And as I was saying, that's kind of where the pitch starts falling apart. It starts with Mark wanting to know what the sales were last month with everything included, the kits and the store.
I don't know offhand.
Of course, this isn't really a reassuring answer for the sharks, and as Mark points out, it's really important to know these kind of numbers so you can actually sell the franchise idea to other people. And her response to that is just that she's just not good with numbers, which again, just isn't a great answer when you're in the Shark Tank. Then kind of out of nowhere, or at least in the edit, she brings up that the franchises are expected to be bringing in $350,000 in revenue, and of course, all the sharks are super skeptical about this answer because how does she know that number but not other numbers they had been trying to get out of her? And her answer to that is that number came from the franchising agency they've been working with, and actually the number they gave her was a lot bigger, but she pared it down because, as she says, she's the riskiest conservative you'll ever meet. As one who watches Shark Tank might imagine, none of this is sitting very well with the sharks, especially Mark, who is the one who loves really digging down deep into people's numbers, and he feels like, #1, she really shouldn't be doing this franchise model when it seems like she's still working on running one of them. He thinks she needs to work on running that first one successfully, then maybe opening a couple more herself, and then maybe in the future opening that franchise when she really has the model down. At this moment, though, she seems super disorganized, and because of that, he's out. It's then Robert's turn to try to get down to understanding the numbers more, so he asks her roughly what she did last year, and once again, we get that kind of same blank stare from her until finally she asks if she can bring out her cheat sheet. All the sharks are like, yes, please, we just want to know the numbers, do whatever you need to do. And she brings out her cheat sheet, which is 2 sticky notes that don't appear to even have all of her numbers, because if they did, I feel like she would have had more answers than we end up getting. And it's at this point that we get a little sales ramp that I would usually give to y'all in the beginning with the other numbers, but I thought it'd be more fun to weave it into the story. And she tells us that in 2022, they did $300,000, and in 2023, they did $730,000. And while Kevin is super happy that we're finally getting some definite answers and numbers, it's at this point that ultimately he decides it's just not a business for him and he goes out. Barbara, for a reason that I do not understand whatsoever, has not lost faith in her and wants to hear more about her ideas for franchising, because franchising businesses is kind of Barbara's specialty area with her Shark Tank investments. And she asks Cricket how confident she is that she'll be able to sell this as a franchise. And she says she is very confident because everybody who comes in the store and sees it loves it. And while I feel like that would be not a good enough answer for me and I would not have more questions after this, Barbara wants to clarify some of the numbers we went over earlier, because as I said, it was very unclear during a lot of this pitch, and she wants to know specifically what the brick and mortar store by itself did in sales and then profit last year. And her response is to again say that the parties do about $500,000 a year in sales. And then she tells us that the margin is $3,500, which that's just, she's saying that's the margin per party, but she's not giving us like if the store profited, which is truly the heart of what Barbara's asking. She is wanting to know if these brick and mortar stores make money and how much. And Cricket's just not completely understanding this. Then Barbara tries to clarify for her again, but she words it as how much did you take in your pocket at the end of the year, which confuses Cricket because she thinks she's asking about salary. And so Cricket's like, I take a very modest salary. So then we have Lori jump in, try to just as clear as day lay it out for her, being like, what did you have at the end of the day after all of your expenses were paid?
$3,500 per party.
Which, like, is not what they're asking. And this poor girl just, like, clearly she just doesn't know. Like, she just doesn't know. Or what some people are speculating on Reddit is that she does know and she doesn't want to answer. I don't know. I have no idea. That's just, those are literally the only two options here. So once again, they ask her as clearly as they can, off the $500,000 you made last year, what was your net profit?
Look at your cheat sheet.
So while she's looking at her cheat sheet, I guess Kevin had just been in his own little world during all of this. I would probably be tuning it out at this point. And he's like, hey, let me help here. Off the $500,000, what was your net profit? And everybody immediately is like, that is word for word what we just asked her. It was such a funny moment. It was too long to put in here, but hilarious. And then after Cricket finishes looking at her cheat sheet, it seems like she just doesn't have an answer for this.
You understand why numbers would matter in the Shark Tank?
And our last three sharks who were in immediately start to go out. We start with Robert, who admits that he was actually really excited about this business when she came in, but after hearing her talk and her not really knowing her numbers and him feeling like her business model is a little confusing, he decides ultimately it's just not an investment for him and he's out. We then have Barbara, who loves her passion and enthusiasm, but doesn't see how she would make her money back, and she doesn't really think Cricket is even clear on how that would work, and because of that, she's out. Last, we have Lori, who echoes the sentiments from the other sharks, talking about how she really needs to know her numbers if she wants to get an investment. She also gives her a piece of advice that she should look into hiring somebody who has strengths in all the areas she lacks. And while Lori does have that piece of advice, she does not have an offer to give, and she is out, meaning, unfortunately, Cricket leaves the tank without a deal. The very first thing I want to talk about is in her little outro exit speech, she talks about, like, just because you're weak in certain areas doesn't mean your business is bad. It just means those people don't believe in you. And I'm sorry, but it's like, you didn't give them anything to believe in. It's not like that they don't believe in the business. Like Robert even said, he really liked the business. Like, you just gave them nothing. You gave them nothing.
I hope you're hungry for nothing.
As far as the product itself, I really don't have a lot of opinions about that. I do agree with the sharks, and I feel like it's way too early for her to think about franchising in this moment. Part of me kind of feels like that franchising agency is just wanting her money and not necessarily caring about her best interest. That's just speculation. I don't know anything. That's just my opinion. But overall, it was just a really painful pitch to watch. Like 0 out of 10. If you have not seen it yet, I do not recommend going back to watch it. And while I do feel bad for her, because I'm sure it's really hard to be in front of all the sharks and all of those sort of things. But at the end of the day, if you know you're not good with numbers, you should be preparing for that in some form or fashion. Like Lori said, hiring somebody who is good at those sort of things. You can bring them in the tank. You don't have to go in alone. You can be like, this is my financial advisor. I brought him into the tank. I know people in the past have brought in binders of numbers before, and in that case you would need to know them, but you could at least have your little binder in front of you. The point is you need to prep. You need to do something, because like Kevin said, it's a Shark Tank. You need to know your numbers if you're expecting to get any sort of investment. Our fourth and final pitch is Morrison Outdoors. Tavis walked into the tank looking for $300,000 for 10% of his baby sleeping bags. Here it is. For starters, it's obviously adorable. It is made for those 5 and under kids in mind. It is designed like a sleep sack, so they have something they're used to sleeping in. Along with that, it leaves their arms free, as lots of kids want to be able to have that while they sleep, but it does have a little cover for their hands to make sure they're nice and warm at night. Not only do they range in size, since they cater from kids 0 to 5, they also have 2 different temperature levels, a 40-degree one and then a 20-degree one for colder environments. So because of that, obviously the price varies. To make can go from anywhere from $22 all the way up to $52, and it retails between $85 all the way up to $200. And finally for you all, I do have lifetime sales and how long they've been in business. How exciting, yay! So they've been in business for 5 years and so far have done $4.3 million in lifetime sales. Last year in 2023, they did $1 million. Year to date in 2024, they had done $850,000 and we're projecting to do $1.1 million. Not a big jump, but we will get more into that as we progress. And we do have a profitable company. Pow, pow! But I will be touching on that more here in a moment. Also, he owns 100% of the company. He hasn't had to raise any money. When he decided he wanted to do this, he went to his wife and he was like, I want to quit my job and take all of our savings, which was $3,000 at the time, to start baby sleeping bags, which, I mean, it ended up working out, but does sound wild to think about. I'm just thinking about coming up to my partner and saying that, it's wild. One of the very first things Tavis tells us about himself is the fact that he's an Eagle Scout, which gives us this great moment from Robert.
So, Tavis, you'll know what this means. I'm a Queen Scout.
Yes, you are, Robert.
It's the Canadian version of an Eagle Scout.
I was like, I have no idea what you mean.
Now it's time for me to go back to that profitable number, because while, yes, they are profitable this year, last year their profit was close to $0. He tells us in 2022, they had a really healthy year, and because of that, he just got way overconfident, dumping his money into marketing and trade shows, and overall just chasing that top line growth that so many venture capitalists love to encourage and talk about. But as many businesses find out, in chasing that top line growth, you're just completely depleting your profit. And once he saw that happening, he decided he wanted to pivot his business to focus more on that bottom line growth. And now this year they will be profitable, so it has a happy ending. Kevin wants to know about the market size because he feels like this is a super niche product. And Tavis informs us that they've shipped out over 50,000 sleeping bags. He says one way that they keep customers around is they have a program that once you buy a sleeping bag and your kid outgrows it, you can ship it back for cash back and a discount on your next sleeping bag. The old sleeping bags they put on their website and sell at a discount, which I just think is a genius marketing move for a company that sells kids clothing that obviously the kid's gonna grow out of, and it's an investment. Just genius. Chef's kiss. Along with that, they pledge 1% of their sales to charitable causes, which Gen Z, older Gen Z and millennial markets love. So I just feel 10 out of 10 on the marketing, promoting himself, trying to build a community platform, no notes. I do want to clarify, in case anybody heard that and thought you're getting 100% of your cash back, no, because that would just be wild. I went on their website to completely double check how it works, and it looks like the less expensive one, you can get $20 cash back or $30 store credit, along with you're getting that discount code. And then the more expensive one is 30 cash, 40 store credit, along with a discount code. So it's not anything wild, but it's better than nothing, especially if you are planning to get another one anyway. Why not do this? I wonder how much it does cost to ship them, though. They can't be that heavy, so I wouldn't think a lot. Maybe they provide a label. I didn't really see that on there. But again, if you're getting one anyway, it's better than nothing. Moving on. While he's giving his presentation, he informs us that they're the #1 leader in the under 5 space, but all the sharks are curious why he wouldn't want to expand to the adult market. And that's when he says he has a little surprise. They have made an adult one. And Robert, being the shark that he is, immediately wants to go try it on and gives us a fantastic moment.
You're ready to roll. That sells for $115. Uses a
Fabulous. Of course.
That's so Robert. That's another day at the office.
Okay.
Just so funny. I love Robert. I could not stop laughing. Then we have Kevin, who decides to jump in, and he likes the fact that he has sales, but he then decides to give us one of his classic lines that he usually gives when these camping type products come out.
But would I ever go outside in a tent where it's cold, where bears could eat me? That idea is foreign to me. I always sleep with a mint on my pillow at night.
And with that, Kevin's out, along with 2 more sharks. First, there is Robert, who loves Tavis and loves the product, but ultimately doesn't feel like it's got enough scalability to be really investable, and because of that, he goes out. Then there's Lori, who echoes similar sentiments to the other sharks, along with the fact that she's worried that there's similar competition on the market, and because of that, she is also out. Then we have Mark, who, on that note of competition, wants to know exactly what it is that people are wearing to sports games, because he really sees the adult sleeping bag as the way to really expand this business. And Travis starts saying, like, there's not a lot out there. You go to games.
People are wearing
I go in the suites. I'm not going outside to freeze my ass off. There's just no way.
Barbara then comes in to say that she loves the product, she loves that he's a Boy Scout, and overall, she especially loves the fact that he saw where his business was lacking and took the time to take steps to pivot to focus on his profit because, as she says, so many entrepreneurs fail to do that. And because of that, she decides to make him an offer of $300,000 for 20%. But we still have Mark left, and Mark asks Barbara if she'd be interested in them going in together, and she is, especially because he has the sports team side of knowledge with this thing, but they say they would need to stick to that 20% if he wants both of them together. Tavis tries to start countering for 16%.
Mark and Barbara, is there anything to think about?
And he decides Robert is right and decides to take the deal with Barbara and Mark for $300,000 for 20%. Unfortunately, I have to start final thoughts off with some sad news. It seems like the deal didn't end up going through. Somebody shared an article in the Shark Tank subreddit where Tavis was talking and saying that after all the due diligence, unfortunately, it ended up not working out. So, sad news. That's all I know about it. That's all he said, probably because that's all he can say because of the NDA. But it made me sad. If you've seen any of my other Shark Tank videos, you can probably guess that I liked this one. Just a simple product. They're making a profit, not losing a bunch of money. I love the story of him figuring out he needed to focus more on his profit. Overall, just loved this pitch. As for like the product itself, I don't have kids. I don't know if this is a problem. I don't camp often. I've only been camping like a couple times. So I don't really know about all that, but clearly there's an interest for this. He has sales. I do fear it might be one of those, it's a good business for you, but not investable to a shark. But at the end of the day, if he's making profit, can take care of his family, that's great for him. More people should just be aiming for that rather than trying to be like quadrillion bajillionaires. More people should just focus on having a nice business that makes you money and just live with that. That's a tangent. I'm sorry. Then as for the adult one though, if I was somebody who like went to outdoor sports to watch them more, I would 100% be buying one of these. If you've seen my Hug Sleep video, I am chronically cold. I was sitting there debating like if I needed one just for like when we're doing outside backyard time with my dog this winter. I do think that's excessive for my needs, but if I had more use case scenarios for it, you best believe I would be buying one of these for myself because that seems great. Just put me in a sleeping bag with arms? Yes. Thank you. I am 100% the customer for that. So overall, I really liked this one. I'm sad the deal fell apart, and I wish them nothing but the best with their different sleeping bags. And that is a wrap on Shark Tank Season 16, Episode 19. If you weren't aware, Episode 20 actually is going to be our season finale, aka Mark's last episode. So sad. This is the shortest season we've had in forever. Really weird. Also, Shark Tank is moving to Wednesdays. Have other feelings about that. This isn't really the time and place to get into all of that. But with that, I will say, if you liked this video, don't forget to like it down below. If you made it this far, seriously, thank you so much. It means the world to me. If you like Shark Tank recaps, Shark Tank product reviews, reality TV in general, check out the channel and subscribe because it is a good time over here. As always, I want to hear your thoughts, feelings, opinions, comments, all that and more down below. And until then, I'll see y'all in the next one.